Hey guys, welcome back. Hopefully you guys got the homework done in your, it was just a week assignment with, throwing a few buttons on screen, testing out the constraints and the auto layouts. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through a little bit about pinning, which the short code to get there, or the shortcut, is down here in the center. You'll see what looks like to be a constraint, and these are going to be the different pins that we'll go through. A few of them, you guys can experiment with the rest. But the other way to get to the pinning is go to your editor, and you'll see pin, which has the exact same options available to you up there. So now I've got a few buttons on screen. I'm going to take this button, I'm going to put it in the center as we did in the last tutorial. And now what I want to do is I'm going to pull this button to the side of it. And so you'll see we have two constraints for this button. We have a center horizontal alignment, and then we also have a constraint holding it to the bottom of the view. If you go over to this button here, you'll see we have two other constraints. We have one to the right, or the trailing edge there, and then we also have the constraint holding it to the bottom, which looks like it's 20 points, which is kind of standard. We're going to go ahead and run this so you can see what it looks like. So we've got our portrait and our landscape, and not exactly what I was looking for. I basically want this button to hug up right next to it, so to maintain the spacing between the two buttons there. So I'm going to go back to the builder here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select both buttons, and I'm going to go down to the pinning, and we're going to use this horizontal spacing pin. So go ahead and select that, and you'll see that a new constraint has been developed here and placed in between the buttons to maintain that horizontal spacing. So let's run that, and you'll see what happens here. So now we have our adequate space there, and we want to maintain that. As we flip over, we're like, what in the world? This button just got huge. Maintain the distance, but our button just doubled in size. So we're going to go back to the builder and figure out what is going on here. There we go. So we're maintaining the space between the buttons, but then we're also telling our button that we want to maintain the distance from this edge to our view, our right side of the edge, which is the trailing edge. And so what we're going to do is we're going to delete that particular constraint, because we really don't want our button expanding as the view expands. You can, so that's why I did that for you, so you guys can see that, but we don't want it in this case. So now we're going to run that, double check it before we move on. As you switch over, now our space between the buttons is maintained, and our button is the exact same size as it is in the view. So now we're going to take this third button, and I'm just going to post it up like right here. So we've got two constraints, one off the left wall and one off the bottom here, and I'm going to run this just so you guys can see it. So as you look at your button and you flip between the two, you'll see the button is no longer kind of grouped within this our button trio here, but it went off to the left here, and that is because of the left wall constraint. So if you click on your constraint here, we're going to go up and look what we have with this. So it looks like it's a constant value, which is 136 points from our, this would be the leading edge, and that's not exactly what we want. We kind of want to group them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this kind of right over our other button, and you'll see that now the constraint off the leading edge is gone, but we have a new constraint which we'll click on, and it's the leading alignment off your button. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull this over here and show you guys how to actually, if you don't have the buttons lined up like that, how to assign it to that. So if you double click both buttons and you go to align, you can align left edges. So now our button is going to be consistent with this line for both buttons there. Alright, so we're going to run that, see if that's kind of what we're looking for, and it is. So basically we've got our two buttons that are aligned on the left edge, we've got our spacing in between there that holds well, and it looks good in both of our views, both portrait and landscape. So the user is going to be happy with that. Now as you click your button, you'll see that we also have this constraint here that again is assigned to the bottom edge of our view. In this case it doesn't really matter, but you probably want to assign it to the button below it where you would pin. In this case, oh, I didn't select both of them. In this case it'd be the vertical spacing between the two. So then we've got the vertical spacing. We can go and delete that just so it doesn't mess with our button in the future as views might change and whatnot. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to select both buttons here, and as you select both buttons we're going to set a new pin, and we're going to go down and we're going to set the two buttons to be, the widths are equal. So as you select that, you'll see that both buttons have an equal sign, and they are basically going to hold consistent. And the purpose for this is, let's say your button, let's type in a little bit larger word in there. That's a real word, guys. You'll see that our button on the bottom, since it's tagged as its pin as equal to this button up here, it's going to expand based on how big this button is here. It didn't affect this button because we have a pin here that basically says we want to hold it consistent with the width here, so it naturally adjusts to it. And that's the beauty of the auto layout. The last thing that we're going to go over is if you click on the button, and let's just say, let's go to this button here. Let's just say no matter what, we want our width to be consistent. So we want to pin the width to exactly what it is now. It's a constant of, so if you click your button and you go up here, you'll see that we have constraint specified directly towards this button, which if you go over to the right hand side is a constant of 73 points. So there's a lot of different things that you could do with that as far as assigning exact widths and pinning them, heights, and pinning the distance between the two, but all to make a better user interface for your users. So that's where I'm going to leave you guys off. Hopefully you guys are kind of understanding how the auto layouts work, and if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll catch you guys later.